My name is Natalie. I'm 30. My family treated me like their personal ATM and problem solver. Meanwhile, my sister Emma, the so-called golden child, could rack up thousands in debt and everyone would find excuses for her. I sacrificed my financial security, my peace of mind, and countless hours of my life, hoping one day they'd finally see me as more than just a reliable backup plan. But nothing prepared me for the moment when I discovered she'd maxed out my credit card to buy her $4,000 wedding dress, leaving me scrambling to pay rent. What would you have done if you were in my place? Share your thoughts in the comments. I genuinely want to hear your perspective. I was always the one who held our chaotic family together, the responsible older sister who paid bills when dad lost another job, who lent money when mom's business ventures failed, who cleaned up every mess without complaint. But to them, it was never enough. They would say, "Why can't you just help your sister more? She's getting married. This is her special time." Their words cut deep, leaving me feeling invisible and taken for granted, like my own dreams and financial stability didn't matter. Emma, 2 years younger than me, had always been the family princess. Where I was practical and hardworking, she was spontaneous and charming. Where I saved every penny working as a project coordinator at a tech startup, she bounced between part-time jobs and relied on family handouts. Our parents, Linda and Robert Chen, immigrant restaurant owners who'd built their small Chinese-American eatery from nothing, somehow always found money for Emma's whims while reminding me to be more responsible with my finances. I remember the exact moment I realized how differently we were treated. I was 25, Emma was 23. I'd been saving for months to put a down payment on a small condo in San Jose, California. I had $15,000 in my account, the result of countless overtime hours and skipped dinners out with friends. That weekend, Emma crashed her car, her second accident that year. Instead of using insurance or facing consequences, my parents immediately turned to me. "Natalie, you're so good with money," Mom said, her voice pleading. "Emma needs a car to get to work. Can't you help? Just this once?" Dad nodded, avoiding my gaze like he always did when asking for money. "You'll get it back, sweetheart. Emma's going to pay you from her new job." But Emma's new job at a boutique lasted 3 weeks. The $8,000 I lent them for her used Honda disappeared into their family emergency fund, and my condo dream got pushed back another year. When I brought it up months later, Emma shrugged and said, "I thought that was a gift. You make way more than me anyway." Years earlier, I had a chance at my dream job, a senior marketing position at a prestigious San Francisco startup offering $95,000 a year plus equity. It was my ticket to real independence, a chance to finally build the life I'd always wanted in the city. I'd made it through 3 rounds of interviews and they were ready to extend an offer. But just when I was about to accept, our family restaurant hit rock bottom. The landlord was threatening eviction, suppliers were demanding payment, and my parents were drowning in $45,000 of debt they'd hidden from us. My mom called me at work, her voice cracking as she spoke in broken English mixed with Mandarin. "Natalie, we lose everything. Restaurant closed next week. 30 years of work gone. Your father, he cry every night. We need your help, daughter. You're the only one who can save us." The desperation in her voice broke something inside me. My dad, usually stoic and proud, admitted they might lose their house too. The shame in his eyes when he asked for help, a man who'd worked 16-hour days since arriving in America, was unbearable. So I walked away from my dream job. I called the startup's HR director, declined their offer, and poured every ounce of my energy and savings into saving our family restaurant. I took out a $20,000 personal loan using my perfect credit score and spent weeks negotiating with creditors, landlords, and suppliers. I worked nights after my regular job, redesigning their menu, creating a social media presence, even waitressing on weekends to save on labor costs. Within 6 months, I'd turned things around. Customer traffic doubled thanks to the new Instagram account I managed and the delivery partnerships I'd negotiated. The restaurant went from losing money to breaking even, then finally turning a small profit. I paid off their most pressing debts and set up a system to manage their finances properly. I worked myself to exhaustion, believing this would finally make them see my worth, but they did. When the restaurant was stable again, my parents called a family meeting. I expected gratitude, maybe acknowledgement of how I'd saved their legacy. Instead, they announced that Emma would be taking over marketing and social media management. "She's more creative," Mom said, beaming with pride, "and she understands young people better." Emma, who couldn't keep a job for more than a few months, was now in charge of the very systems I'd built from scratch. Dad nodded approvingly. "Emma has fresh ideas. She'll bring new energy." Emma smirked, already planning changes to my carefully crafted social media strategy. "You did okay getting us started, Natalie," she said condescendingly, "but I can take it to the next level." Okay, I'd saved their entire livelihood, sacrificed my career trajectory, and poured $20,000 of borrowed money into their dream. But to them, I was just the reliable workhorse who'd filled in temporarily. I wanted to scream, to demand they acknowledge what I'd done, but I didn't. I swallowed the hurt, forced a smile, and kept going. Late night, I'd still help with bookkeeping and supplier negotiations, anything to stay useful. I told myself they'd they'd notice eventually. If I worked harder, proved myself more indispensable, they'd finally see my value. Maybe at next year's Chinese New Year dinner, Mom would toast my contributions. Maybe Dad would tell relatives how I'd saved the restaurant. My best friend since college, Jennifer Park, saw through my denial. We'd meet at our favorite Korean BBQ place in San Jose, and she'd shake her head, listening to my latest family drama. "They're using you, Natalie," she said one night, grilling beef while I vented about Emma's latest expensive mistake. "You're killing yourself for people who see you as a convenience store, always open, always there when they need something." I brushed off her concerns, but her words stuck. I couldn't stop hoping that one day, one grand gesture, one more sacrifice would earn their respect. So I stayed, pouring myself into their world, managing their finances, covering their shortfalls, believing one day they'd value me. The restaurant thrived because of my systems and planning. The books were balanced because I kept them. Suppliers got paid on time because I managed the cash flow. But every time I walked in, I saw Emma's name on the new business card as marketing director, while I remained the unnamed family member who helped out. My parents would ask Emma about social media strategy while I restocked supplies in the back. "Good thinking," Mom would say. When Emma posted a photo I'd actually taken and edited, Emma would breeze in twice a week, make minor posts using content I'd created, and receive praise like she'd revolutionized the business. I kept waiting for recognition, for someone to acknowledge that their success was built on my sacrifice. Months later, I found myself deep in wedding planning hell. Emma had gotten engaged to Marcus Webb, her boyfriend of 2 years, a nice enough guy who worked in tech sales, but seemed completely oblivious to Emma's financial recklessness. My parents handed me the unofficial role of wedding coordinator, not because they asked if I had time or money, but because they simply expected me to make it happen. "Natalie, you're so organized," Mom said, handing me a stack of bridal magazines Emma had marked up with sticky notes. "Help your sister plan her dream wedding. She's so busy with the restaurant marketing." The irony wasn't lost on me. Emma was too busy managing the systems I'd built to plan her own wedding, so I needed to plan it for her. I was still working my day job as a project coordinator, making $65,000 a year, but between rent, student loans, and the personal loan I'd taken for the restaurant, I was barely breaking even each month. Still, I dipped into my emergency fund to help with wedding deposits. Emma wanted everything perfect, and my parents expected me to make it happen without complaint. I spent weekends driving around the Bay Area, visiting venues in Half Moon Bay and Napa Valley, haggling with caterers to fit Emma's champagne taste into our beer budget. I picked a menu that balanced elegance with affordability, herb-crusted salmon, wild rice pilaf, seasonal vegetables, and found a photographer willing to work within our $3,000 budget by booking a Sunday slot. But Emma had bigger plans. She didn't just want a wedding. She wanted a magazine-worthy spectacle that would generate hundreds of Instagram likes. Over dim sum one Sunday morning, she casually mentioned wanting a live jazz quartet, imported peonies from Oregon, and a videographer to capture every moment. "It's my once-in-a-lifetime day," she said, scrolling through Pinterest on her phone. "I deserve something special." I tried to explain that we'd already stretched the budget thin. The venue, catering, and photography had consumed most of our allocated funds. "Emma, we need to be realistic," I said gently. "The jazz quartet alone cost $2,500, and the peonies would add another $1,800. She rolled her eyes dramatically. "You always worry too much about money, Natalie. Figure it out. That's what you're good at." Mom chimed in from across the table, sipping her tea. "Your sister only gets married once. Don't be so stingy." Dad just nodded, reading his Chinese newspaper. The same dismissive gesture I'd seen countless times. When my concerns were brushed aside, their words stung, but I kept trying, thinking maybe a perfect wedding would finally earn their gratitude. I worked evenings calling vendors, renegotiating contracts, finding creative solutions to stretch every dollar. I booked a talented local quartet for half the price of the jazz band Emma wanted, and I found a flower market in San Francisco where I could get beautiful, locally grown peonies for a fraction of the imported cost. But Emma kept pushing for more. One Tuesday evening, she called demanding custom calligraphy for all the invitations, an extra $800 we definitely didn't have. "The printed ones look so basic," she complained. "Everyone's going to think we're cheap." When I reminded her about our budget constraints, she snapped, "Why can't you just make this work? I thought you were supposed to be good at solving problems." Jennifer noticed the toll it was taking when we met for our monthly catch-up at a coffee shop in downtown San Jose. "You look exhausted," she said, studying my face as I scrolled through vendor emails on my phone. "How much of your own money have you put into this wedding?" I admitted I'd spent nearly $5,000 of my savings covering deposits and upgrades Emma insisted on. Jennifer set down her latte firmly. "Natalie, you're funding your sister's fantasy while you're still paying off the loan from saving their restaurant. When does this end?" I shrugged, stirring my coffee absently. "If I can pull off the perfect wedding, maybe they'll finally see how much I contribute to this family." Jennifer shook her head, unconvinced. "They already see it, Nat. They just don't value it. There's a difference." But I couldn't stop. I kept negotiating with vendors, coordinating timelines, ensuring every detail aligned with Emma's Emma's vision. I even drove to 3 different bakeries to find the perfect cake, a 3-tier vanilla and raspberry creation that fit both her taste and our budget. My savings account dwindled from $8,000 to $3,000, but I told myself it was an investment in family harmony. Emma's demands escalated as the wedding approached. She decided she needed a second photographer for candid shots, professional hair and makeup trials that cost $200 each, and upgraded linens that would add another $400 to the venue fee. Each request came with the same expectation that I'd handle the logistics and financing. "You've got this under control, right?" she'd say, already moving on to the next item on our ever-growing wish list. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday evening in February. I was at my apartment, finally relaxing after a particularly stressful day at work, when Emma burst through my door using the spare key I'd given her for emergencies. Her eyes were bright with excitement, and she was practically bouncing with energy. "Natalie, you'll never believe what happened," she exclaimed, dropping her purse on my couch. "Marcus and I went to that bridal shop in Palo Alto. You know, the one where all the tech wives shop? And I found the dress, the one I've been dreaming about since high school." She pulled out her phone, showing me photos of an elaborate ball gown with intricate beadwork, a cathedral train, and what appeared to be thousands of tiny crystals sewn into the bodice. It was undeniably stunning, the kind of dress that belonged in a fairy tale or a celebrity wedding magazine. "It's gorgeous, Em," I said carefully. "But what did it cost?" I was already dreading the answer, knowing our dress budget was $800, money I'd earmarked from my rapidly shrinking savings. Emma's smile faltered slightly. "That's the thing. It was the last one in my size, and they had another bride coming to look at it tomorrow. I had to make a decision right then, or I'd lose it forever." She took a deep breath. "So I bought it." My stomach dropped. "Emma, please tell me you didn't spend more than our budget." "The dress was $4,200, she said quickly, the words rushing out. "But Natalie, it's perfect. When I put it on, I started crying. Marcus said I looked like a princess. The seamstress said it was made for me. $4,200, more than 5 times our budget, more than I'd spent on my car." I felt dizzy. "Emma, how did you pay for a $4,200 dress? You don't have that kind of money." She looked away, suddenly very interested in my coffee table. "Well, I knew you'd understand why this was important, and I knew you'd want me to have my dream dress." She reached into her purse and pulled out my credit card, the one I'd given her months ago to handle small wedding emergencies, with strict instructions that it was only for pre-approved purchases under $100. My hand started shaking. "Emma, tell me you did not charge $4,200 to my credit card." "I knew you'd be upset at first," she said quickly, "but when you see how beautiful it is, you'll understand, and I'll pay you back, obviously. Marcus is getting a promotion next month, and we'll have the money then." I stared at the credit card in her hand, my credit card, which I'd trusted her with for genuine emergencies, the card that already carried a $12,800 balance from covering other wedding expenses, the card that, with this purchase, would now be maxed out at its $7,000 limit. "Emma," I said, my voice barely controlled, "I gave you that card for true emergencies only. We agreed on that. A $4,200 dress is not an emergency." She stood up, her defensive mode activating instantly. "My wedding dress is an emergency. I found the perfect one and I had to act fast. You're always telling me to be responsible and make quick decisions. That's what I did. Being responsible would have been calling me first." My voice was rising now, months of frustration boiling over. "Emma, I don't have $4,200 to spare. My rent is due next week and I've got loan payments and bills." "You're being dramatic," she interrupted. "You make good money and you never spend it on anything fun. Consider this my early birthday gift or something. You never buy yourself nice things anyway." The casual cruelty of that statement hit me like a physical blow. She'd maxed out my credit card without permission, then dismissed my financial concerns as being dramatic. In her mind, my money was apparently her money, available whenever she decided she deserved something special. That night, after Emma left with a huff about me not being supportive, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, staring at my credit card statement. The $4,200 charge to key. Bella Rosa bridal glared back at me in stark black and white, with interest and my existing balance. This would take me months to pay off, assuming I could make more than minimum payment. I called the bridal shop the next morning, hoping to return the dress, but they explained their policy. No returns on special orders or alterations, and Emma had already authorized custom hemming. The dress was hers, and so was my debt. For weeks, I scrambled to manage the financial fallout. I took on freelance graphic design projects in the evenings, worked extra overtime when available, and ate ramen noodles for dinner, more nights than I'd care to admit. My emergency fund vanished entirely as I juggled rent, loan payment, and the minimum payment on my maxed-out credit card. Jennifer was furious when I told her what happened. "She stole from you, Natalie. That's what this is, theft. You need to demand she return the dress or find another way to pay for it immediately." But Emma had moved on, already focused on other wedding details, seemingly oblivious to the financial stress she'd caused me. When I tried to discuss repayment with her, she waved off my my concerns. Don't worry about it right now. I've got a million other wedding things to handle. We'll figure out the money stuff after the honeymoon. After the honeymoon. As if I could afford to wait 4 months for reimbursement while paying 18% interest on her impulse purchase. Meanwhile, the wedding planning continued at full speed, with Emma's demands becoming more elaborate and expensive by the week. She decided she needed a second dress for the reception, something fun and danceable, which she casually mentioned would cost another $800. She wanted upgraded flowers for the bouquets, a champagne toast for all 150 guests, and a late-night snack date that would add $15 per person to the catering bill. Each request came with the same expectation that I'd handle the coordination and financing. "You're so good at this stuff," she'd say, already assuming I'd find a way to make her visions reality. Meanwhile, I was working 50-hour weeks and taking on weekend freelance projects just to keep up with the debt she'd created. The final straw came 6 weeks before the wedding. Emma called me on a Saturday morning while I was working on a logo design project, one of several side gigs I'd taken to manage my finances. "Hey, can you meet me at the venue at 2 p.m.? I want to do a final walkthrough and make sure everything's perfect." I drove to the beautiful winery in Sonoma County where Emma's reception would be held, expecting a quick check of logistics and decor. Instead, I found Emma with a notebook full of new demands: upgraded linens that would cost an extra $600, additional floral centerpieces at $45 each, and premium bar service that would increase our alcohol costs by around $200. "Emma, we've already locked in our budget," I said, trying to stay calm. "These changes would add over $2,000 to costs we've already committed to other expenses." She looked at me with genuine confusion, as if my concern was completely unreasonable. "But these upgrades will make everything look so much more elegant. Can't you just put it on your credit card like before? You'll get the photos forever. Think of it as an investment in memories." My credit card, the one she'd maxed out buying her wedding dress, the one I was still struggling to pay off while she planned additional expenditures. Something inside me snapped. "No, Emma," I said firmly. "I cannot and will not put another penny of these wedding costs on my credit card. You've already maxed it out with your dress purchase, and I'm barely managing the payments as it is." Her face showed genuine surprise, as if she'd forgotten about the $4,200 dress entirely. "Oh, that. I told you I'd pay you back for that eventually. This is different. This is about making my wedding perfect." Eventually. Eventually wasn't helping me make rent or buy groceries. Eventually, it didn't reduce the 18% interest I was paying on her impulse purchase. And apparently, my financial stress wasn't important enough to factor into her ongoing demands for more expensive wedding upgrades. "Emma, I need you to understand something," I said, my voice shaking with months of suppressed frustration. "I've spent over $6,000 of my own money on this wedding, money I didn't have to spare. I've worked nights and weekends to cover costs you just assumed I'd handle. I've sacrificed my own financial stability to make your dreams come true. And instead of appreciating that, you keep asking for more." She stared at me like I'd spoken in a foreign language. "I didn't ask you to spend your own money," she said defensively. "You offered to help with the wedding planning. I offered to help plan, not to finance your entire fantasy wedding." The words came out louder than I'd intended, and other customers in the venue's tasting room turned to look at us. "Emma, you used my credit card without permission to buy a $4,200 dress. That's not help, that's theft. Don't be so dramatic," she said, using the same dismissive tone that had become her standard response to my concern. "It's not like you can't afford it. You make way more money than Marcus and me." That was it. The moment I realized that no matter how much I sacrificed, how much I gave, how much I struggled to meet her expectations, Emma would never see me as anything more than a convenient funding source. To her, my financial stability was expendable as long as her wants were met. I stood up from the tasting room table, gathering my purse and car keys. "Emma, I'm done. I will not be covering any additional costs for this wedding. If you want upgrades, you and Marcus need to figure out how to pay for them yourselves. You can't just abandon me 6 weeks before my wedding," she called after me as I walked toward the exit. "What am I supposed to tell Mom and Dad?" I turned around one last time. "Tell them you'll need to find someone else to fund your champagne dreams on a beer budget. I'm done being your personal ATM." I drove home in a daze, my hands still shaking from the confrontation. For the first time in years, I'd said no to Emma. I'd set a boundary and stuck to it, even though she'd reacted with shock and anger. Jennifer was proud when I called her that evening. "It's about time," she said. "Now you need to figure out how to get reimbursed for what you've already spent." That's when the idea hit me. Emma wanted to treat me like a business transaction, using my credit without permission, dismissing my concerns about payment, assuming my services were free and unlimited. Fine, I could play by business rules too. Over the next 2 days, I carefully documented every expense I'd covered for Emma's wedding. The initial deposits, $200. Upgraded flowers, $300. Photography add-ons, $450. Catering modifications, $180. The emergency dress purchase, $4,200. Additional decor Emma had requested, $280. Mileage for vendor meetings and venue visits, $165. Time spent coordinating vendors, managing logistics, and handling crises, 47 hours at my consulting consulting rate $45 per hour. Total $8,995 in direct costs plus $2,115 in labor. I created a professional invoice using the same template I used for my freelance design work. At the top, invoice for wedding planning and coordination services. Below that, Natalie Chen Consulting with my address and phone number. And the line items were detailed and specific. Wedding planning consultation and vendor coordination. 47 hours, first of 45 hours, $2,015 emergency dress purchase, unauthorized credit card use, $4,200 venue deposits and upgrades, $200 floral arrangements and upgrades, $580 photography and videography coordination, $450 catering modifications and tastings, $180 transportation and mileage for vendor meetings, $165 miscellaneous supplies and emergency purchases, $205 total. Due $11,010 payment terms, net 30 days, late fee 1.5% per month on outstanding balance. I printed it on professional letterhead, put it in a crisp white envelope, and mailed it to Emma and Marcus's apartment with delivery. The phone started ringing days later. Natalie, what the hell is this? Emma's voice was shrill with indignation. You sent me a bill for helping with my wedding? It's an invoice, I said calmly, sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of tea, for services rendered and expenses covered. I documented everything carefully. This is insane. You're my sister. Sisters don't charge each other for wedding help. You're right, I agreed. Sisters also don't max out each other's credit cards without permission. Sisters don't dismiss each other's financial concerns as being dramatic. And sisters don't assume that love means unlimited free labor and financing. I can't believe you're doing this to me, she said, and I could hear tears in her voice. 3 weeks before my wedding, you're trying to destroy everything. I'm not trying to destroy anything, Emma. I'm trying to get reimbursed for the money I spent on your behalf. Money I didn't have to spare. Money that's caused me significant financial stress for months. Mom and Dad are going to be furious when they find out about this. Then maybe you should have thought about that before using my credit card without permission, I replied. Emma, you've had months to discuss repayment with me. Instead, you've avoided the topic and continued requesting more expensive upgrades. The invoice simply formalizes what you already owe me. She hung up on me. Within an hour, my phone was ringing again. This time it was Mom. Natalie, your sister is hysterical. She says you sent her a bill for helping with the wedding? What's wrong with you? I took a deep breath. Mom, Emma charged $4,200 to my credit card without permission. I've covered over $8,000 in wedding expenses from my own pocket. I've worked nearly 50 hours coordinating vendors and logistics. When I asked her to discuss repayment, she dismissed my concerns and kept requesting more expensive upgrades. But she's your sister. This is her wedding. And I'm her sister too, Mom. But apparently that only matters when she needs something from me. You're being selfish and petty. Family helps family without expecting payment. The irony was stunning. Mom, when was the last time Emma helped me with anything without expecting something in return? When has she ever lent me money, covered my expenses, or spent her weekends working on my problems for free? Silence on the other end of the line. Emma used my credit card without permission, I continued. That's theft, whether she's my sister or not. If a stranger had done this, you'd tell me to call the police. But because it's Emma, I'm supposed to smile and absorb thousands of dollars in debt for her benefit? You make more money than she does, Mom said weakly. That doesn't make my money her money, Mom. I work for my income. I budget carefully. I pay my bills on time. Emma's financial irresponsibility doesn't create an obligation for me to fund her lifestyle. Mom hung up too. Dad called that evening, his voice tired and disappointed. Natalie, this invoice thing is causing too much drama. Can't you just forget about the money and let Emma have her special day? Dad, would you ask Emma to forget about $11,000 if the situation were reversed? He paused. That's different. How? How is it different? Another long pause. Emma is getting married. It's a stressful time. I'm your daughter too, Dad. I've been stressed for months trying to manage the debt Emma created. But my stress doesn't matter because I'm not the one getting married? I could hear him sigh deeply. What do you want us to do, Natalie? I want Emma to pay me back the money she owes me. I want our family to stop treating my financial stability as less important than Emma's wants. And I want to be treated like a person, not like a convenient funding source. How much would you accept to make this go away? The question broke my heart. Not how can we make this right or what would be fair, but how much to make this go away, as if my legitimate grievances were just an inconvenience to be bought off. Dad, this isn't about negotiating a settlement. This is about Emma taking responsibility for her actions and our family respecting the fact that I have financial limits too. too. 3 weeks passed. The invoice went unpaid, and my family stopped calling. Emma's wedding proceeded as planned. I wasn't invited, which was fine by me. I spent that Saturday hiking in the Santa Cruz Mountains with Jennifer, finally feeling free from the drama and obligations that had consumed months of my life. Jennifer brought champagne and sandwiches, and we found a beautiful spot overlooking the valley. "How do you feel?" she asked as we sat on a fallen log, watching hawks circle overhead. "Relieved," I said, surprising myself with honesty. For the first time in years, I'm not worried about what Emma needs or what crisis I'll be expected to solve next. "And the money?" I shrugged. "I've accepted that I'll probably never see most of it, but sending that invoice wasn't really about getting paid back. It was about refusing to pretend that Emma's behavior was acceptable. It was about valuing myself enough to set boundaries. Your parents must be furious. They'll get over it, or they won't. Either way, I can't keep sacrificing my financial security and mental health to maintain their illusion that Emma is just spontaneous rather than financially irresponsible." That evening, I treated myself to dinner at a nice restaurant in downtown San Jose. The first time in months, I'd spent money on something purely for my own enjoyment. I ordered the salmon, got a glass of wine, and read a book while eating alone. It felt luxurious and peaceful. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Marcus. Can we talk?" I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. I called him back after finishing dinner. "Natalie, I'm sorry about this whole situation," he said, his voice uncomfortable. "I didn't know Emma had used your credit card without asking. She told me you'd offered to cover the dress as a wedding gift." "She lied to you, Marcus. I never offered to pay for a $4,200 dress." "Yeah, I figured that out when I saw your invoice. Look, Emma and I had a big fight about money after the wedding. She finally admitted she'd been charging things to your card without telling me. I made her cut it up. A small victory, but an important one. I appreciate you calling, Marcus. I want to pay you back, at least partially. Emma and I combined our wedding gift money, and we have about $3,000 in cash. I know it's not the full amount, but it's something." I was genuinely surprised. "Marcus, you don't owe me anything. This is between Emma and me." "No, it's not," he said firmly. "I'm married to her now. Her financial mistakes affect both of us, and what she did to you was wrong, regardless of family dynamic." 2 days later, Marcus dropped off an envelope containing $3,000 in cash and a handwritten note. "Thank you for everything you did to make our wedding beautiful. I'm sorry Emma took advantage of your generosity. Marcus." Emma never apologized directly, but about 6 months later, she started inviting me to family dinners again, acting as if nothing had happened. I went occasionally, mainly to see my parents, but the dynamic had permanently shifted. I was no longer the go-to solution for family crises or the assumed funding source for Emma's impulses. When Emma and Marcus bought their first house and needed help with the down payment, they asked Dad instead of me. When Emma wanted to start a small business selling handmade jewelry, she applied for a proper small business loan rather than expecting family financing. The invoice had established something important, that my resources weren't unlimited or automatically available. About a year after the wedding, Emma finally acknowledged what had happened, though not quite in the way I'd hoped. We were helping Mom clean out the garage when she found the wedding planning binder I'd created, full of vendor contact, timeline spreadsheets, and budget tracks. "You really did put a lot of work into my wedding," Emma said quietly, flipping through pages of detailed notes and coordination checklists. "Yes, I did. I guess I never really thought about how much time you spent on it." "No, you didn't." She was quiet for a moment. "The invoice thing was really embarrassing. Using my credit card without permission was really expensive. I know, I'm sorry about that part. I should have asked first." It wasn't the complete apology I'd wanted, but it was acknowledgement. And more importantly, Emma's behavior had changed. She'd learned that actions have consequences, even within families. She'd learned that my generosity had limits and that crossing those limits would result in actual accountability. The whole experience taught me something crucial about family dynamics and personal boundaries. For years, I'd enabled Emma's financial irresponsibility by always being the safety net, always finding a way to solve her problems, always absorbing the costs of her poor decisions. I'd confused love with unlimited availability. The invoice wasn't really about the money, though getting $3,000 back certainly helped. It was about refusing to participate in a dynamic where my needs were consistently prioritized below everyone else's wants. It was about demonstrating that respect and consideration should flow both ways in family relationships. Jennifer later told me that sending the invoice was the bravest thing she'd ever seen me do. "You finally valued yourself enough to demand that other people value you too," she said. "That's not selfish. That's self-respect." My parents eventually came around, though it took time. Mom still occasionally makes comments about family helping family, but she's never again asked me to cover Emma's expenses without discussion. Dad actually complimented my business sense when he heard that Marcus had voluntarily paid back $3,000. "You handled that professionally," he said, which was the closest thing to an apology I was likely to get. The restaurant is still thriving, using the systems I originally created. Emma still manages their social media, but now she follows the posting schedule and content guidelines I established. When they need financial advice or business planning help, they pay me a consulting fee, a small one because they're family, but a fee nonetheless. It establishes that my expertise has value and my time isn't free. My credit card is paid off now, and I've rebuilt my emergency fund. I bought a small condo in San Jose last year, the same dream I'd had to postpone when Emma crashed her car. This time, no one asked me to delay it for a family emergency. I've learned to say, let me think about it when family members ask for help, instead of immediately saying yes. Emma and Marcus seem happy in their marriage. She's gotten better with money. Not perfect, but better. She has a real budget now and actually sticks to it most of the time. She's even started paying me back small amounts occasionally, usually $100 or $200 when she gets a bonus or sells some jewelry. It's not consistent, and it may take years to recover the full amount, but it's progress. The best part isn't the money, though. It's respect. Emma asks before borrowing things now. She says please and thank you when I help with family events. She doesn't assume I'll cover costs or handle logistics without discussion. The invoice forced her to see me as a person with limits rather than an unlimited resource. More importantly, I learned to see myself that way too. I spent years believing that love meant saying yes to every request, covering every shortfall, solving every problem regardless of the personal cost. The invoice taught me that healthy relationships require boundaries, and that setting those boundaries isn't cruel. It's necessary. When Emma announced her pregnancy last month, my first reaction wasn't, "How can I help?" but, "Congratulations, that's wonderful news." I offered to help with the baby shower planning, but I specified a budget I was comfortable contributing and stuck to it. Emma didn't push for more expensive options or assume I'd cover overruns. She's learned that my generosity comes with limits, and those limits deserve respect. My relationship with my parents has improved too. They still call Emma first when something good happens, and they still see her as needing more support, but they've stopped taking my contributions for granted. When I helped them upgrade the restaurant's computer system last year, Dad insisted on paying my full consulting rate. "You're running a business," he said. "We should pay business prices." The invoice created a clear dividing line in my family relationship, before and after accountability. Before, I was the family doormat, always available, always accommodating, always absorbing the costs of other people's decisions. After, I became a family member with boundaries, someone whose time and resources were valuable and limited. Looking back, I wish I'd set those boundaries years earlier. I might have kept that dream job in San Francisco. I might not have gone into debt saving the restaurant. I might not have spent months stressed about credit card payments Emma had created. But I also might not have learned how liberating it feels to value yourself enough to demand respect from others. The invoice wasn't really about 11,010. It was about refusing to accept being treated as less important than the people I love. It was about recognizing that enabling someone's irresponsible behavior isn't kindness, it's enabling. And it was about learning that saying no to unreasonable requests doesn't make you selfish. It makes you self-aware. If you're dealing with family members who consistently take advantage of your generosity, who dismiss your financial concerns as being dramatic, who assume your resources are automatically available for their benefit, I want you to know that setting boundaries isn't cruel. Demanding basic respect isn't selfish, and refusing to fund someone else's dreams at the expense of your own stability isn't heartless. My family still tells the story of the wedding invoice incident at gathering, usually with a mix of embarrassment and grudging admiration. Emma rolls her eyes when it comes up, but she also tells people that it taught her to be more careful with money. My parents shake their heads at my business approach to family relationship, but they've never again assumed I'd cover large expenses without discussion. The invoice forced everyone to confront an uncomfortable truth that for years they'd been taking advantage of my willingness to sacrifice for their benefit. Once that pattern was broken, we had to build new relationships based on mutual respect rather than one-sided giving. I still help my family when they need it, but now it's a choice rather than an obligation. Emma still calls me for advice, but she asks rather than demanding. My parents still appreciate my business expertise, but they pay for it rather than assuming it's free. The invoice didn't destroy our relationships, it made them healthier. 3 years later, I'm in a completely different place financially and emotionally. I have savings, I have boundaries, and I have self-respect. I'm dating someone wonderful, a software engineer named David, who thinks my invoice story is brilliant rather than selfish. He's never asked me to lend him money, cover his expenses, or sacrifice my financial security for his benefit. It's refreshing to be with someone who sees me as an equal partner rather than a convenient funding source. Emma's second baby is due next month, and she asked if I'd be the godmother. I said yes, but I also made it clear that being a godmother doesn't mean I'll be the default childcare provider, education fund contributor, or emergency babysitter. She laughed and said, "I wouldn't expect anything else from Aunt Invoice." The nickname stuck, and honestly, I don't mind it. It reminds everyone, including me, that I'm someone who values herself enough to set boundaries and demand respect. It's a badge of honor representing representing the day I stopped being a doormat and started being a person with limits. So if you're reading this and thinking about your own family dynamics, ask yourself, are you being generous or are you being taken advantage of? Are your family members treating you with respect or are they treating you like a convenient resource? And most importantly, what would it take for you to value yourself enough to say no? The invoice wasn't the end of my relationship with Emma. It was the beginning of a better one where we're both equals, where both of our needs matter, and where love doesn't mean unlimited sacrifice from one person for the benefit of another. And honestly, seeing Emma's shocked face when she opened that envelope, realizing for the first time that her actions had real consequences, that I wasn't going to absorb the cost of her irresponsibility forever, was better than any apology she could have given me. If you were in my shoes, would you have sent the invoice? Or would you have continued absorbing the cost to keep peace in the family? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who were taking advantage of your generosity? How did you handle it? Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's destructive behavior. Sometimes respect has to be demanded rather than freely given. And sometimes the best way to show someone you value the relationship is to insist that the relationship be based on mutual consideration rather than one-sided sacrifice. The invoice taught me that I deserve better than being treated as a convenience. Always open, always available, always there when someone needed. I learned that saying no doesn't make you self, it makes you human. And I discovered that the people who truly love you will respect your boundaries, while the people who only value what you can do for them will reveal themselves through their reaction to those limits. 3 years later, I'm still proud of that invoice, not because it got me money back, though the $3,000 from Marcus certainly helped, but because it represented the moment I finally stood up for myself, the moment I decided that my financial security and emotional well-being mattered just as much as Emma's wedding dreams. That's the lesson I want to leave you with. You matter, your needs matter, your financial security matters, your emotional well-being matters, and anyone who consistently dismisses those things while expecting you to prioritize their wants doesn't deserve unlimited access to your resources. Set the boundaries, send the invoice, literally or metaphorically, demand the respect you deserve, and remember that the people who react with anger to your reasonable limits are usually the people who are benefiting most from your lack of boundaries. You deserve relationships based on mutual respect, not one-sided sacrifice. And sometimes the only way to get that respect is to stop giving it away for free.